I hate Beyblade X. But why? No, seriously, why do I hate Beyblade X? Beyblade X had the potential to be the best Beyblade series of all time, focusing more on competitive, having a new gameplay style, going back to metal contact points, so what the hell happened here? Well, that's what I'm going to be discussing in this video. Today I'm going to be talking about Beyblade X and why I think it's really not that good. This will be based on my own personal experience with Beyblade X, community opinions, such as in my Discord server, and we're going to talk about some of the genuine problems that Beyblade X has that are just very overlooked. But before we dig into Beyblade X, we need to figure out what makes it tick. Beyblade X is the 4th generation of Beyblade featuring metal contact points like Metal Fight and HMS, and having a new system as well. This gear allows the Beyblades to move super fast around the stadium and then dive towards the center. This is known as an extreme dash. They also decided to market this line differently, going for a more competitive feel and making the bays a bit more sport-like. This generation also takes a lot of inspiration from previous generations. It's sort of a melting pot of all of them. So now that we have a good understanding of Beyblade X, let's talk about them. The designs. Let's of course start with the Beyblade's designs. I think they're the weakest of the 4 generations. Now why is this? Well, let's take a look at the previous gens and see what they did. Plastics were the 1st generation and were very, very simple. They had a bit chip in the middle with a picture of the creature or bit beast that represents the Beyblade, and the contact points and attack rings had molded detail that represented them as well. We also had a lot of stickers that gave us contrasting color, some designs, and even some text. I would say that these are quite similar to Beyblade X in their simplicity, however these also have some pretty ridiculous shapes. There's also the HMS line during the latter years of Plastic Gen, which basically just look like smaller Plastic Gen Beyblades, nothing really too crazy. That led into the Metal Fight generation, which is considered one of the best by a lot of fans. These Beyblades really upped the ante with their really nice molded detail and colors, and amazing sticker designs. I think that these are a pretty fair comparison to make because, well, these are metal, so makes sense. But just like Plastic Gen, we kinda got a new system at the end with the Zero G series, and oh my god, these are beautiful. They had spectacular molded detail, beautiful sticker designs, the middles were there. These are arguably some of the best looking Beyblades ever, and a lot of people compared X to Zero G when it first came out. And of course we have the Burst generation, which was the generation previous to Beyblade X, and we have a lot of different systems here. We got Dynamite, Sparking, GT, God, Josie, Duel. There are so many different systems, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. Some people prefer the beef of the later Beyblades, and some people prefer the simplicity of the earlier ones. But one thing that these Beyblades have in common is that they integrate parts of the avatar into the Beyblade design, making them really feel like what they're supposed to represent. So as you can see, there's a couple things in common with the first 3 generations of Beyblades. They had molded detail and stickered or printed detail that represented the Beyblade. Now, does Beyblade X have that? If you take a look at the vast majority of Beyblade X bays, the molding is there, but it's not really that impressive. A lot of designs in Beyblade X only vaguely resemble what they're supposed to represent, which is kind of a letdown. Like, how does this Dragoon look like less of a dragon than this Dragoon from 25 years ago? Like, for example, we have these 3 Beyblades that actually do a decent job with the molded detail. We have these shark-like contact points on Shark Edge, which these look pretty cool. On Phoenix Wing, I guess these are supposed to be wings, and it's a metal coat, so I mean, that's cool. Hell's Chain is chains, yippee. I think that CX, though, is a decent exception to this. You'll hear this a lot in this video, but the CX Beyblades are much better than BX and UX in pretty much every single way. They're a great step forward for the line, and I hope these things improve further. But they have a lot more plastic on the top, giving them room for some printed on detail. Unfortunately, they basically are doing the exact same thing for the printed detail on each Beyblade. They're these kind of basic colored printings with these gradients on them, and they just don't look that appealing. This makes the Beyblades kind of feel corporate and boring in comparison. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. Oh, it's not fair to compare X to previous gens because apparently comparing them to the standard presented before is a bad thing. But regardless, if you want me to compare X to X, okay, fine. I present to you the Hasbro exclusives. Hasbro exclusive Beyblades actually have really nice molded in detail that represents the Bit Beast. Like Fort Hornet, for example, it's got honeycomb, that's fun. For Tusk Mammoth, you can see the big brow up here, the eye right here, and a tusk sticking out. Unfortunately, this Beyblade is terrible, so who cares? Bear Scratch is a pretty cool one. You got these claw details right here, and then you can see the bear heads as the main contact points as well. And probably my favorite one is Tyranno Roar. Like, the main contact points are T-Rex heads. That's awesome. And you can see on this Beyblade and a couple of my other bays from the pile over there that I even went in and did some painted detail. Like there's some blue right here and some yellow for the eyes. I think Beyblade X should really do that. It can make the bland metal of these Beyblades pop a lot more. And they've done that in the past with stuff like Meteo. These gold sections are painted on, but nothing else is. And it just looks like metal, but they can do that too. But instead, we're just getting a bunch of very boring colors and shapes. Like, look at Shark Scale. Like, what is that? How does that look less like a shark than Shark Edge, which came out like 2 years prior? Wizardrod out here is looking more like a steering wheel than a Beyblade X, but apparently, that's what it is. And there's the recent Mummy Curse. It looks like bread. Not a single one of you can tell me that that Bay looks good, by the way. It doesn't. Now, another problem with the Beyblade X designs that goes past their visuals is the durability of them. I see so many breakages for Beyblade X, it's insane. I see things like Wizardrod, Drawn Dagger, Silver Wolf, like so many bays. And I always hear the same excuse that, oh, they're clashing each other at super hard speeds, of course they're gonna break faster. Two counterpoints. One, if they were not designed with longevity in mind, within their own ecosystem, they weren't designed well to begin with. And two, they can absolutely fix this, but they just choose not to. Specifically for BX and UX stuff, because once again, CX reigns supreme. The main blades for these have this large metal ring that's quite good at taking impacts. I haven't seen that many, if not any, breaks from CX bays. And if they fit this ring inside of the other Beyblades, that would be great. But they don't. I don't know why. They have plenty of room for it, and it would just save so many blades. They're no strangers to making updated molds for parts either. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing this on purpose, so you'd have to buy more of their stuff. This is a common practice that companies do, alright? Not saying that they are, just saying it's possible. But okay, not a big fan of the Beyblades designs? Whatever. At least you like the gameplay, right? Well, the gameplay for Beyblade X is the most different out of the 4 generations. Once again, they have a gear rack around the entire stadium, and a Beyblade can dive into the center using the gears on the bit. Now, while this is fun to watch, I don't necessarily find it fun to play. The nerfs. For a lot of Beyblade X bays, Takara will make these very strange nerfs to them to make them mediocre or just flat out bad. For instance, Shinobi Shadow and Ghost Circle are so lightweight that you just cannot use them at all. Same deal for the remakes, and I know the argument, oh, they're not supposed to be used in battle, that's why they're nerfed. They can make them unnerfed, man, there's no excuse. And some remakes in the past were really good, like, you know, Drigger V2 and the El Drago remake. There are also some Beyblades that they just make unbalanced for literally no reason. Like a lot of the Hasbro exclusives. This stupid thing has an imbalance, and it's horrible because of it. And I also hear the argument that they do this so nothing is too OP, like as good as Wizardrod. But wouldn't that be a good thing if it was as good as Rod? Here's the thing, when it comes to a Beyblade meta, the best way to balance it is to have a lot of stuff near the same tier. A lot of options in S, S+, A tier, even B tier sometimes. Now while Beyblade X does have options like that, you'll mostly just see them opt for the best ones. And I get it, you know, you want to use the best stuff to win, and this isn't a knock at anyone who uses those good things. This is a knock at the meta for sucking the fun out of it. Comparing Beyblade X to something like MFB Limited or Burst GT, which are the best Beyblade metas by the way, they have a lot of great options in that S and A tier range. That way you can see what all the little niches for each combo is, and that's a lot of fun. You get a ton of variety out of that, and I think that's awesome. Meanwhile, a lot of what I see in Beyblade X is just Rod, Hover Wyvern, and then Shark Scale. Maybe you'll see some other stuff like Silver Wolf, Phoenix Wing, Pegasus Blast, but it's really just those top 3. At the very least, you have maybe one of those bays in your deck, and if you're based and you're actually fun, you don't use them at all. I'm kidding, you can use whatever bays you want. Again, this is a knock at the meta, not you for using them. The Beyblade X meta feels a lot more like Beyblade Burst Standard than it does Metal Fight Limited, and I know, here come the hate comments. Oh boy! But if you really think about it, they are so similar, it's almost scary. Burst Standard, most people's decks are Wind, Vanish, and Guilty. Like, that's it. Maybe they'll have different parts, but it's usually those 3 blades. And of course, you know, there are still some lower tier options, but you don't see them as much. Stuff like Ultimate, Savior, Prominence, Dynamite F-Gear. Hey, doesn't it sound familiar? This also leads into the lack of variety portion. Those other options don't really offer a unique battling experience when it comes to playing the game. Meanwhile, MFB Limited has so many options for so many different things. Like for the stamina stuff, you got things like Earth, Flame, Bakushin, you know, even Burn probably. And then for attack, you got Screw, Vulcan, Lightning, Pre-Hybrid Pegasus. And they all have their own niches and unique combinations that work for them. Same thing for Burst GT. For stamina defense, you got Lord, Master, Tact, Cosmic, Heaven Pegasus, and of course the attackers in GT are great with things like Judgment, Fly, Imperial, even the Eldrago remake I've seen. Beyblade X doesn't necessarily have that niche combo use or that preference, just what's the highest on the tier list. And I'm sure not all players play like that, but just look at the winning combo lists, man. The amount of Rod on Hexa is just too much. And don't bring up Flame 230 CS, because it's actually not that hard to beat. The meta has evolved, get over it. A lot of subtypes in X also just straight up don't exist anymore. Like, Tornado Stallers cannot work. Pretty much any form of mobile defense or stamina just does not work in the Beyblade X stadium. And Rubber Attack just is dead. Completely. And that sucks because people love Rubber Attack. I love Rubber Attack. You probably do if you've played any other generation, and it just sucks in X now. Awesome. Even the variety in the bits is kind of lame. Most of them are just, hey, it's this, but it's like taller or shorter, or the gear is different or whatever. Like, why can't we get some more unique stuff going on? Why can't we get more materials? Where's my metal flat? Where's a metal ball? What about rubber ball or sharp? Like, those would work great for defense in X, because defense in X is not that amazing. What about some more involved bits? Stuff like Orbit from Burst or Revolve. Like, that would be really cool. Now I'm sure after hearing all this, a lot of you are just kind of, you know, going like, why would you say that about Beyblade X? You know, if these are such big problems, why aren't the larger Baytubers talking about this? Well, this is where a bit of a theory comes in. Baytubers do not want to critique X. You guys remember Beyblade Burst for Hasbro? Unfortunately, I do. If you don't know, they nerfed the Bays into oblivion, they looked like garbage, they were not competitive, and they just weren't even fun. However, the YouTubers that were sponsored by Hasbro and partnered up with them to do their reviews didn't say anything negative about them so they could make their money. They were effectively just being sellouts, pretty much. It's possible it's happening again. I don't want to say this is happening, and I'm not naming any names here, but it's a song and dance that we've heard before. Because of course, a lot of large YouTubers are either sponsored by, you know, TT, Hasbro, or a store, or they just have that much brand loyalty. And this creates some, like, dishonesty in the community, and I think that really sucks. Okay, editing me here, but what I specifically mean is that a lot of large Baytubers undermine things like the really dumb nerfs that they make to the Bays, which, you know, that makes the game less diverse. We have, you know, problems with durability, quality control, which for no reason, those should be undermined. Those are huge issues that should be properly addressed, not swept under the rug for whatever excuse they have. Now, with that being said, we'll get back to it. And here's the thing, I'm not a large channel. Relative to the rest of the Beyblade community, I am really small. However, being the largest in the LEGO Beyblade community, I firsthand experienced how what you say in a video can influence and change the narrative of what everybody thinks. It's a pretty great power, and we all know what that comes with, right? But because the big Baytubers control the narrative, not many people really believe that. Not saying to go after them. Again, don't go after anyone in this video for whatever reason. I'm just saying, like, dude, it sucks being into Beyblade right now. I was so disappointed to see how Beyblade X developed. It never really lived up to that initial hype where everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be the best Beyblade series ever. And in the end, I'm sticking to Burst. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you guys aren't too offended by this rant of mine and at least agree with some of the points that I've made. This sounds familiar. Anyway, comment, like, subscribe, stuff like that. I mean, if you haven't already unsubscribed, but please don't. And I'll see you in the next video.